Middleton Board of Selectmen. I'd just like to remind people that this meeting is being recorded, and by being in this room, you assent to having your likeness recorded as well as your voice should you speak. I did not.
No minutes.
I did not see. Okay, great.
There's no minutes.
The warrant. Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight on warrant number 1714, on payroll side, we've got $613,749, and on the bills payable side, $807,796, of which $52,457 is for streetlights, as the latest cost in the conversion project from high-pressure sodium to LED. $249,610 for the new ambulance. We've had that ambulance for a while, and that just processed that recently. And about $59,000 in power purchase for MELD. Sarah Wood, our CFO, town accountant, has reviewed this and requests the board's positive action.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. It passes unanimously. The Town Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of items tonight. Last week, the legislature passed in informal session, and Governor Baker signed a piece of legislation delaying the implementation of the retail recreational marijuana statute. The so-called pot shops were initially going to be available as early as July of 2018. January 2018. The new legislation pushes it out to July of 2018. So it should give the state treasurer enough time to establish the Cannabis Control Commission and for them to adopt regulations. It'll give cities and towns like us a little extra time to get our ducks in order, make sure that we have everything in place that we need. We expect to be putting a moratorium article on the annual town meeting for 1-year moratorium on retail marijuana sales. So we'll have that in the coming months as well. So the legislation does not affect the personal recreational use and growing at home component. That went into effect December 15th, so that still stands. That's still active, has no effect on that. A couple of passings to bring to the board's attention. We did put information out tonight for everybody. Frank Fitzgerald, the former superintendent of Middleton Schools, passed away on the 30th. He had been the superintendent for about 20 years prior to the, as I understand it, prior to the Tri-Town merger. The wake for him is on Thursday from 10 to noon. Also on December 30th, Priscilla Neal passed away. She had been secretary to the Finance Committee and along with her husband had been active in town, including the Recreation Commission. So we pass our condolences along to both families and friends of both of them and wish them the best in this challenging period.
Patricia was also one of the founding members of the Stream Team.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. Okay. Next time board members are in Town Hall, Memorial Hall, you may notice a little change on the first floor.
Saw that today.
Yep. The town clerk and the collector have flipped offices. It's a project that was in the plans before I even arrived last year. For various reasons, got put on hold and delayed a couple of times. So they've just flip-flopped, gives a little more room for the clerk's office, puts the collector a little bit closer to the treasurer collector, so works out a little bit better organizationally. So, and then finally, we're beginning the budget process, or continuing the budget process with department-level meetings, starting that this week. That'll continue over the next couple of weeks, and sort of the next step in our development of the fiscal 18 operating budget that we will present and discuss in greater detail on February 4th at our Saturday Budget Summit. That's all I've got for tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Any questions of the town administrator? Hearing none, we'll go to our first agenda item, which is, I believe we're going to close the hearing, dismiss that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we dismiss and close the public hearing that has been held and moved from December 20th regarding Rusty's Bottle Shop.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any other? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain.
And just for, people in the audience, the reason it's being, closed and no action being taken is that that business has actually been sold, and it will be reopening at some point, probably later in the month, as Mike's Discount Liquors.
Great. Thank you. All right. Our next agenda item is to review the timeline for the May 15, 2017 annual election.
No action needed for this item. This is just an informational piece from the town clerk, letting everybody know that papers are available for elected offices for the May 15th, 2017 election. Typical, I won't read them all, but typical list of offices open. Papers are available until March 27th. So if anybody is interested in more information, you can check with the town clerk or check the website.
Great. All righty. Our next agenda item is an update on the plans for Natsu Way recreational area presented by Bruce Haskell of Langdon Environmental. Bruce, welcome.
New Year. Do you want me to project this or do this?
I think you had the handouts.
Yeah, handouts here. So.
All right, let's just do that.
Yeah, so what I have some handouts to pass. Full size of the plan. I think we'll share those. I have 5 or 6 of those, so I'll move around.
Thanks.
Yeah, probably better there.
Good evening. Andy and Ryan asked me to come in and just speak quickly about the status of the Natsu Way project with the anticipation of a discussion of what the next steps would be, trying to, if it is going to be on the town meeting agenda in the spring, and trying to finalize that and get in what project is there. I think I've been in front of the board several times about the project. The design is sort of on hold, on a shelf. And the only real change in the design plan that you see, the recreation plan, the 2 figures that we have, the 11 by 17, is we added sort of a gray box on the Quinn property that the town meeting last spring authorized acquisition of for parking. And again, that hasn't been fully laid out. It hasn't been really fully designed at this juncture, but it's not a major effort that we could put together. So we've sort of switched. If you remember, there was parking along Natsu Way, along that stretch.
Is that how far the line's going to go on that parcel? I thought it was much less than that.
It is less than that.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
It's a gray blob.
Yep, got it.
It
Okay.
covers that. So out there, and so we don't know what the extent of it's going to be because we have to finalize the investigations that the town meeting money that was authorized last spring out there, and it sounds like that process is moving forward as of today, actually. So very well. So what I also did was I provided the board with an updated construction cost estimates. These are essentially the same estimates as you saw last January and through the spring as we were debating whether to put this on town meeting in the spring of last year. And again, essentially, there's a phase 1. There's a lower court and fields project, which is on the Natsu Way, the former Richardson property out there. And there's a phase 2, which is the upper fields on the Cap landfill. And the phasing does not imply any timing out there. We have the entire project, which is both components, which we'd estimated at $3.4 million before. We escalated that forward a year. Some published numbers are that construction costs have gone up by about 3.9, almost 4% in the last year People are busy, construction costs have gone up. To give you the total estimated cost, what's removed from this is that the prior table that you saw had the MCP, Mass Contingency Plan, the investigations cost for $130,000. Those were actually appropriated at town meeting, so they're no longer part of the project at this point. So essentially, that balances off the project escalation estimate there. The second item is the lower project only. This is on the Richardson property, both the courts and the field out there, and that's about $1.75 million. The courts only would be about $853,000, and the lower field only would be about $1 million or $1,070,000 out there. And then the only thing that hasn't been added, because it really hasn't been designed, is the parking on the Quinn parcel. It probably is not a huge delta on these numbers out there, because we did remove some parking that's being replaced partly by that. But again, we need to do some investigations to figure out what the extent of that will be. So we wanted to give you the update of some of the numbers. Again, the numbers haven't changed substantially. The design is what it was a year and a half ago.
Does this include some paving of the roadway entrances, and not so much down on River Street, but, really, I know when you take the corner right past Adjution Way and continue down, the road gets pretty tough there. I assume that includes paving of the roadway over?
It includes some improvements on the roadway as it goes up to the transfer station around the old Cap landfill, because there was some concerns about people parking along the road and different events and different things like that. There's some improvements in moving of the fences on the detailed plans that are out there. There really is not a lot of physical improvements to Adjution Way. There are some traffic improvements along the intersection where it's a Riverview Road. It goes off to the industrial park.
Yes.
In that area, the parking and things like that. And those are sort of, if your eyesight's really good, you can see them on there. But there's sort of some conceptual ideas to sort of slow traffic down and control that intersection, because it's just the way the traffic comes in and out of there, just to make sure people slow down because of the parking along the edge there. That is actually one of the great benefits of the Quinn property acquisition, is it takes a lot of parking that was going to be backing out onto Adjution Way and puts it back into the off street with a single entrance that's out there.
Any questions?
So, Bruce, as I recall from last year, the construction bid documents, you were virtually had them complete.
Right, correct.
So, if we go forward with the entire project in May for May approval, when would those documents go out to bid?
They would probably go. The schedule is actually almost the exact same schedule that we had last year. So we'd probably want to be out to bid sometime around March 1st there, to give some time, give 6 weeks for bids, come back in the middle of April, give a little slack in case there's an issue with a bid or something like that. Give us a time to sort of make sure the contractor's qualified and everything else. That gives us a little slack for the early May timeline to come to town meeting with a number with all the components in it, and it would be some engineering time, the construction bid, and obviously a contingency for changed conditions out there that we talked about before. That would probably be sometime around March 1st, have to know. But the critical thing is we sort of have, and again, we're presenting this as 3 or 4 different projects. Potential different options. Obviously, the construction bids are much different for a courts-only project than they are for the entire project. So we would need to know if it's desire of the board is to separate those out.
So would it be problematic or not conducive to getting good bids if we offered different options for bid, i.e. the whole enchilada, and then a Phase 1 only bid and a Phase 2 only bid?
It would be hard. You have to determine when you do public bidding. You have to say we are awarding this contract based on something, some solid bid out there. So you'd have to pick one. So the whole enchilada. Maybe we pick that, and that would sort of preclude. People wouldn't give you real prices for the subdivisions. What you could do is, for example, if it was you took the whole project and said, it's $3.5 million. Here's the whole project. You can have bid alternates for smaller amounts. Like the Quinn parking could be a bid alternate. I'm not just picking an example. A small portion of the project that you would get legitimate prices for. But
So a bid alternate couldn't be the whole enchilada and then a bid alternate of Phase 1 with the Quinn parking?
No, yeah, because you wouldn't, you need to say, we're going to award the contract based on a certain price. So so in that scenario, what you'd say, we're going to award the contract based on the price that you bid for the big project, but then we may only give you the smaller projects, so you're not going to get good prices for the smaller project, because it's not really the basis of what it is. It's a vague, I mean, it's a difference between how the public has to bid this versus how a private sector person might take a look at a project with this kind of different options there.
Yeah, for me, doing, the whole thing at one time, makes sense, because we can't break it out and not need to do bonding. So if we break it out, you're basically having 2 votes and 2 bonding votes and 2 override votes. And that, to me, just doesn't make sense.
So, Bruce, when do you, in terms of what the choice of the project is, in order to meet that March 1 deadline, how soon do you need to, do you have to have an answer on that?
It would be ideally, by Valentine's Day, I guess would be the middle of February, because we have the bid documents there. It just would be the time to take that and do that, and that might actually push the bidding back a little bit there. But mid-February sometime, if you said, okay, we want to go out to bid with this project here. And again, I'm just presenting 4 alternatives here. There's obviously small hybrids that we could try to look at. But if you define that project, then we could make the chances. And a lot of it would be taking the existing plans and essentially crossing out things that aren't included in the project, that if that was the way that the board decided to proceed.
In terms of financing, in terms of how to pay for this, you still have the possibility of applying for a park grant. And also, there is, the Community Preservation Committee has made a substantial commitment to this project. Back when we were talking about, going forward this past May, the Community Preservation Committee had dedicated $1.645 million to the project. At its March meeting of last year, it increased that to $2 million. So $2 million out of the 3.5 plus interest would come in, and there's a possibility of that increasing further in the early years, so that the net impact to the tax rate in any one year will be fairly minimal. And one of the primary reasons that the Community Preservation Committee is willing to make this commitment is that it views this project as something that will transform community life. It will create our own outdoor community center. And it's my personal belief that within 3 years of it being complete, people couldn't imagine living in town without it.
So I think the reason we put it on the agenda was to really get a sense. Bruce had given you a sense of the timeline that he needs in terms of getting the document out. So we wanted to really queue it up for the board so that they could discuss it, get you ready for it, know what the update looked in terms of the costs. So it's really just to get some direction from the board as to how you
So
like best to proceed.
if the lower project was done, rather than the lower and the upper at the same time, and it was just the lower, which was the lower field and the courts, with an investment from Community Preservation Fund, what would be the needed amount for an override?
1.7. You have to
I
authorize the entire cost, because the community
But the reality is, I know you authorize the entire cost, but what would be the amount that would be borne not by the Community Preservation Fund?
I don't think you can expect 2 million if it's not the full project.
Understood. So what amount do you think because it's great to see what these costs could be. It'd be a lot better to see what the costs will be when it's bid. But I think in the end, we have to see when, we went last year for an override. We're coming back this year to ask for an override for this. I think we need to understand what the effect is going to have on the tax rate, not just what the total amount would be and with an investment from the CPC. So what I want to see is what
the impact on the average single-family home, I don't think will exceed $100 in the highest year.
So those are the numbers I need to see in addition. So similar to what is shown for an annual investment that's coming from the CPC for the Natsu Way Recreation Project, similar to that, I want to see what the anticipated is for not just the average single-family home, but as it was done last year in the override, what it would be in the different bands of values of homes. I mean, I think we get to look at this with an apples-to-apples comparison rather than, 1.765, 1.7 million, 3.6 million, or whatever it is, plus the parking on the Quinn parcel that we're going to be acquiring. I think we need to be able to see what, in the end, what the taxpayers' cost is going to be.
The master plan is not meeting on this, so this month.
So we, can I actually make a comment
Go
about
right
it too
ahead.
while I'm here? So I'm Mindy Wogan, I'm co-chair of the master plan. Thank you for having me. The Visioning Open House is the same date as our scheduled meeting, so we're now going to talk about this in our February meeting. But can I just throw out there that I think sometimes we think that taxpayers will digest this easier in smaller amounts. And so when we think about doing a project in steps, we think it'll be easier for people to raise their hands because the amounts are smaller. I have a couple of feelings about that. First, if we remember what happened with the Rails to Trails, and that was a really small amount, people started to freak out at that meeting about what was next. So they didn't really know what step 2 was, or phase 2 and phase 3. So they got worried about saying yes to phase 1 because they felt that maybe the wool was being pulled over their eyes about what would be left in phase 2 and phase 3.
I think some people are more concerned about I don't want this in my backyard, what could potentially be right behind my home, and some of the other 2 phases that weren't proposed. And I don't disagree with you, Mindy, in the terms of, and for me, this isn't an argument of if we lower the cost, people will take a bigger bite. My argument is we're also simultaneously with a consultant, similar to what Masconomet is doing in their own capital needs, looking at all of our other facilities in town. While we built a new school and we updated the library and we did some updates to this building, including the roof, we have some pretty dramatic needs at Memorial Hall, some that we're going to try to address on an emergency basis through special town meeting coming up at the end of the month. But we're taking a look at all of our other facilities, police, fire, public works, and Council on Aging and Senior Center needs. And my argument isn't so much about this, is I want to look at it all in the bigger picture is, once this goes on our bonding schedule, but also entails an override, I don't want anybody to misinterpret. If we do something with police, fire, or Council on Aging, they're also going to need the same decision to be made. I just want to make sure we're doing this all together in a single decision. I mean, hey, I was the one that helped drive owning this property to be developed and said at town meeting that we're not going to buy it and let it sit like we've done with other properties. But what I don't want to happen, Mindy, is we jump into this and then when the report is done from the consultant on police, fire, and Council on Aging, and I think you can pick all 3 of those buildings before we even talk about Memorial Hall. I mean, we've got a Council on Aging facility that is abysmal at best with an aging population in town. We have a fire department where we have equipment that we can't even park in the building because we just don't have room. We have a police station that we cobbled together with modulars that you guys in the school committee donated to us that we've kind of cobbled together for a period of time. And then we have a Memorial Hall, which we actually have structural problems with that we're trying to fix, both on an emergent basis, but then need a long-term plan. So I don't want anybody to think that my position on this is let's take a small bite and be done with it. I mean, it may be the big bite is the right one to take. I just want to look at options as we look at other capital needs that we have, because, and I get it, and I appreciate the voters, the investment they made last year. That wasn't on capital issues, that was on operational. We had a structural deficit in our operational budget that we had to address both for last year and going forward, and we've addressed that. This is a capital issue, which I think are two different things. And I think the voters have historically embraced that and understand the difference. I just want to make sure that we are making the investment overall that is the biggest priority. And I don't disagree that this is a priority. We bought the land. We need to, if we buy more land and let it sit with nothing, be done with it, we will never get anything through town meeting again, and rightly so. But I just want to make sure that we have all of our priorities laid out in front of us and look at what the horizon is. I mean, we look at our bonding over a 20, 25-year period, and we know what's coming and going. It's not the bonding issue. It's all of these investments are going to require an investment in tax dollars and an increase in tax dollars above and beyond Proposition 2.5. That's really my argument.
Well, and, to address those needs you outlined, I mean, they're not in the immediate horizon, even though the need is there, because we do not own land on which to accommodate those needs. Here, we own the land. Mm-hmm. We can do this. So, missing an opportunity to do this in the hopes of doing something else 5 to 7 years down the road.
For me, it's not a case of the hope, Costa. For me, it's the case of we need to look at this in the. I mean, I look at any investment I make at my home with my family. We look at costs we have now and costs, and if my wife's watching this, I know she wants to go on vacation in February. We also have college tuition coming next year. So that's the way I'm trying to look at this. And I'm not, trust me, Costa, nobody wants to get these fields built more than I do. I just want to see the bigger picture on what the cost is going to be, not just what we're asking the voters in this town to do for an override, but what our other needs are. And I will tell you, well, many of those may be 5, 7, and even 10 years down. And I haven't seen the final report that's coming, but we've got 3 major needs in this town. We have a council on aging that is abysmal, the facility, not the organization. They're great. We have a fire department that needs to be updated, and we have Memorial Hall that we obviously have structural problems that we're going to Band-Aid and fix so they're no longer a danger. But we need to get to the point of what is our plan? I mean, the way we've always structured non-school, other than the library, everything has always been piecemeal. We've taken a bite of it and then taken a couple of years. Or Memorial Hall, where we kept putting $100,000 a whack into that building. Over those years, we could have made the investment that we should have made at Memorial Hall. Overall, we probably put $1 million into that building. And now we're struggling to try to figure out how to fix it. My only argument is I just want to see the whole financial picture, what we think our needs, and we may not have by February or even May exactly what the plan is, and that's going to take time to come up with a plan, but I just want to know what the potential costs are going to be and and let's lay it out on an agenda. I don't want to say, hey, well, we did this, and now the need we have to do at Memorial Hall or Council on Aging is going to be put off 5, 7 more years. That's my point.
Well, and part of the way that the Community Preservation Committee contribution is structured, in the last 5 years, virtually all of the debt service cost is being covered, so that the tax rate or the
I know. As soon as South Main, and then later on when the library gets off, there's a bigger jump. I get that.
If one of these projects where there is the fire department, police department, council on aging, realistically, none of those are going to be ready in the 5 to 7 year period. So as about time we're getting there, most of this cost of this project is being borne by the Community Preservation Committee.
That's just what I want to see. I want to see at some point, we're going to get a recommendation back, Andy, I assume, from the committee that's going to state on our capital needs of these facilities we've looked at, this is, we're not going to get what we've been getting out of Bruce and your team, which was, if you did this, it's going to cost ballpark this amount, but we're going to get what the needs are, what needs to be updated, what the options are, i.e., we can't expand the fire department unless we start double stacking trucks in and the garage, so, I mean, I assume a fire department expansion is going to have to be somewhere else. A police department expansion may be able to happen right there. And I understand why the fire department issue is we don't have land. It has to be within a certain geographic location to the center of town, but I just don't know. I feel like we're making a decision without seeing the whole picture. I just want to see the picture.
So we should have the first draft of the facilities report in late January, beginning of February. So we're scheduled to meet on January 31st, I believe. We've got the all-day budget meeting on February 4th, and then a meeting on the 14th of February. So if things fall into place well, we'll have some sense of what those other projects are going to be. It gets up tight to Bruce's timeline, but but I understand, Brian, what you're saying. I don't think you're off target on it. I think we need to have the full picture. So I think we do have some.
I also get the concept. I mean, we didn't do it last year for obvious reasons, and I get, Bruce, your estimates of putting off a year was about $130,000 in additional carrying costs. And I get that if we took the upper fields and put that off for 6 years, that number of, I don't know how much the increase would be just on the, but I get it, it would be exponential. Costs aren't coming down. I get that. Although, if bonding becomes as cheap as it was when we did Hal Manning, which you'll never see that again, that would be a whole different story. But
Right.
I don't know if I'm alone on the board on this. I just want to see the whole picture before I, and this is, again, where this board is going to have to take ownership of not just supporting this here in the board and at town meeting, but ownership of supporting it at the ballot.
Well, I think, the master plan committee would be more than eager to lead the approval campaign. Is that right, Mindy?
Yeah, I guess, too, Brian, just to finish what my thought was really just, I understand the whole picture thing, but what I guess I was trying to say was, if you're on board for this park, you're going to be on board for it full, is my thought. If we break it up, not only are costs going to go up year to year, but breaking it up makes it more expensive. Correct, Bruce? To not do it all at the same time. So it's that plus the increase. So if you're a person who wants to support this park, you're going to support it whether, like I still maintain, and I know it was an unpopular decision that we should have done it last year because we mobilized everybody to be there. And if I'm on board for this park, whether I started paying for it last year or this year or next year, it's really not that different. It's in my taxes for the next however many years. So if I believe in it, waiting one more year didn't make a difference to me or many people I spoke to, but I still believe strongly that doing it in full will be the way to go. So just to share that.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Mindy. I think we just need to look at this. This isn't a case of let's do half the project so we can put off indefinitely and not do the rest of the project. I mean, I get completely if we split the baby on this, it's going to cost us more later on when we do the second point. I completely get that. That's for me, that's pretty common sense. However, I feel like I have a fiduciary responsibility as we look at the entire picture of all of this. And while if you support the park, you're going to support it all or half. However, if you don't support the park, I want to get as many as exactly as you said, Costa. This park can become the one piece that ties everybody in town together, kind of like the library. Was it a period of time? I mean, you've seen in battles over schools, the first battle when the school was proposed up at Locust Street, it became a neighborhood versus neighborhood issue. I mean, this is an issue that can actually bring folks together rather than divide. I just want to make sure that we're looking at this in a fuller picture and understand exactly what our other future costs are, because quite honestly, I think we've always looked at it as, well, what do we have for bonding capability? And this isn't just the bonding capability. This is, in the end, the capability is the voters that aren't just going to go to town meeting, but can go to the polls and vote. Because I want them to vote for a park, and then I want them to vote for what we need to do for our other facilities. I absolutely want them to go to the polls and do for the seniors in this town, which probably have gotten a little bit of the short shrift for a long period of time, and actually give them a senior center so they actually aren't going outside of our town to receive these services, because our senior center has no parking, no space, a building that is woefully outdated. I want to see that approved too. And just because somebody supports one doesn't mean they're going to support all. We have to get them to understand and lay out for them. I've said this till I'm blue in the face. I want transparency, that folks understand not what's happening this year, but what's happening in the future as well.
So our meetings are January 30th and February 14th?
Yeah, so it'll be
31st.
17th,
Oh, 30 days. of
17th,
September.
31st. We've got the Saturday meeting on February 4th, and February 14th is a regular meeting. So we've got a couple of opportunities.
So we have 3 meetings before you need this is what it looks like.
Yes.
But the 14th of February would be correct me if I'm wrong, Bruce, that would be the cutoff. That would be the sort of drop dead.
I think this discussion has to happen the same time we're doing our budget and our capital discussion, so.
Well, but that's in March.
That's March, yeah, unfortunately, that's it.
It's true.
So, we can have a discussion about how these things fit in on February 4th.
Right.
Or we have, the FinCom there also, and perhaps, at that point, we'll have sort of the information from the facilities,
Yeah. We didn't get to this question last year because the decision was made on this project in February or March. What is because this would require a debt exclusion vote, would that be anticipated to be on the annual election ballot or a special?
Annual,
Annual.
That's what I expected, but,
which would be the Monday following town meeting.
correct, yeah, the 15th.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. So why don't we, what are you looking for, 30th or the 4th? What do you want to put this back on for?
I would say we should probably talk about it, put it on for January 31st for an update and see what
I'm
we
going to say
have.
the 30th every time, and it's going to be the 31st, so okay. Okay, let's put this back on for the 31st, and we'll get... Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you
Good to
again.
see you.
Thanks, Bruce.
And Mindy, while you're here, do you want to make a pitch for people to come on Monday to the visioning?
To the visiting open house is going to be at the library from 6 to 9, so that people. All the way down here. The visioning open house is on Monday at the Flint Public Library from 6 to 9. It is residents of Middleton. It's their chance to come and give their opinion about what they would like to see happen here in the future of Middleton. And take the survey. If they haven't done so already online, they can take it there. There'll be snacks, which is really the key to getting people to come. So we hope you'll stop by for a little while at the Flint Library.
Great.
Thank
Thank you so much. Alrighty. Our next agenda item is a open meeting law, an update on new provisions effective January.
Public records.
Sorry?
There's a misprinting on the agenda. It's the public record law.
Oh, public record law.
Yeah.
Okay, because it was
My
open.
bad. The original agenda said open meeting.
Oh, okay, because it was open meeting, I was going to go in executive session. So. Sorry. Bad joke, inside joke for everybody at home. All right, update on the new provisions effective January 1st, 2017.
Right, so we talked about this a while ago. The legislature passed a law last year changing the public records law. At one time, I think Massachusetts was sort of on the cutting edge of public records, 45 years ago, something like that. And 46 or 47 other states have passed us by, and so the legislature adopted some changes to the law, and they went into effect on January 1. And so there's a memo in the packets, the meeting packets tonight. Memo went out to department heads last week, just sort of laying out sort of first steps in how we deal with the new public records law. The statute creates a position of records access officer, which by default is the town clerk. So for the time being, unless other arrangements are made, that will be Eileen Twiss. And so for true public records requests, they would all go through Eileen Twiss. One of the things I wanted to impart on the department heads is that not every request for a document is a public records request per se. If somebody comes in and says, hey, can I get a copy of the selectmen's minutes from December 4th? Oh, yeah, here you go. What I don't want to do, and what the law can sort of default to, is creating a big bureaucracy over every piece of paper that somebody might want. So really, it's in all honesty, the updates are overdue. We're concerned about some of the elements of it and what the impact is going to be on us in terms of complying. But I think the intent is correct, and my goal is to make our compliance as straightforward as possible and not complicate it any more than it needs to be. So for the residents or business people out there that are watching, if you have a simple request for a document, just call up the department that you think probably has it and ask for it, and they'll deliver it to you. For bigger things, it'll go through the clerk as the records access officer. So I won't go through the whole thing. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think it's also something that, as we understand the law and the application and implementation of the law better, we're going to be making some tweaks to this. And in talking with colleagues in other communities, we're all sort of groping in the dark about how this is going to work. And then, as a further wrinkle, I found out last week that the person at the state who typically handles all of the public records request complaints is no longer there, and that was a small office to begin with. So what happens to complaints until they fill that position? Who knows? But I want to be well positioned that we comply and continue to provide exemplary service. So the other thing that I'll share that I mentioned to the department heads is it's an opportunity for us to build some goodwill with people for when these requests do come in, and so by being responsive and being quick, it's an opportunity for us to make some points with people and show them that we're not the poster children of bad government that you sometimes see on the I-Team and other media outlets. So we'll keep you up to date as things go on. The whole good government, what I refer to broadly as the good government statutes, public records, open meeting law, and conflict of interest law, are going to get a lot of attention, are getting a lot of attention, and that's going to be kind of a focus over the coming months to make sure that we're up to date on all of those statutes and where we need to be. So you'll probably hear more about it in the future as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Anybody else, anything? No. All right, our next agenda item is a review of the February 28, 2017 special town meeting warrant. A vote to close and sign the warrant.
So we talked about this at the last meeting, and the 28th works for the moderator, for town council, and the school is available. So those are sort of three linchpins of scheduling a meeting, and gives us enough time to post the warrant and everything. I did go through over the weekend, and I noticed that there were a couple of repeated words and things like that. So I did make a couple of minor changes. I also included the planning board recommendations for the two zoning articles because the planning board has voted on their recommendations on those. So if the board is okay with closing and voting it tonight, I would ask that we be given the latitude to perfect the document if we notice anything else, and to include any other recommendations or other items that may come in between now and when we give it to the constable for posting.
Great. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? It passed unanimously. All right. Our next agenda item?
I should formally vote to close the warrant as well, just as a procedural matter.
Do I have?
Chairman, I move that we close the warrant for the special town meeting of February 28th, 2017.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Town Administrator.
Thank you.
All right. Our next agenda item is always an easy one. Acceptance of a $1,000 donation from Middleton Family Medicine to the Middleton Council on Aging.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept with thanks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Passed unanimously. Our next agenda item is accepting of a $1,000 donation from the Jeff and Carol Kirby Foundation via Fidelity Charitable to the Middleton Food Pantry.
Move to accept with thanks.
I have a motion and a second. So, in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. New business.
I have
Mr. Prentakis, I knew you did.
two things. First, I'll be having another of the citizen feedback sessions next Thursday, January 12th, at in the trustees' room of the Flint Public Library from 6:15 to 7:15. So, Ryan, if you could arrange for an email, maybe like this Thursday and next Tuesday.
Okay.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, that at the Masco meeting tomorrow, there will be a discussion on staffing and enrollment and facilities. So if anyone is interested in those two large topics, please come.
All right. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
No, sir.
No? All right. All righty. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I don't need a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we stand adjourned.